I stand on this occasion with a heavy heart to speak on this motion. And with a heavy heart, I shall vote down this motion. But I do so with a clear conscience. This vote is no doubt important, for it has long been the aspiration of the Hong Kong people to be able to choose their own political leader, their own political destiny. And more importantly, because the decision to vote for or against this proposal represents two divergent paths for the future of one country, two systems. One of these paths is called political expediency. The passage of this constitutional proposal by this council is politically expedient for the Central People's Government because it can finally say to the world that it has fulfilled its promise under Article 45 of the Basic Law and that there would be universal suffrage in Hong Kong by 2017. That is political expediency at the expense of good governance. Political expediency at the expense of true democratic values. Political expediency at the expense of the Hong Kong people. Voting for this proposal means walking down this path, this slippery path of political expediency. The other path is the path of upholding and safeguarding the core values of the Hong Kong people. During the last century, Hong Kong has transformed into one of the world's foremost financial centers and trading hub. A large part of this transformation is no doubt thanks to these core values, values of hard work and meritocracy. But these values have since become more than just instruments of economic development. These values have become central to the city itself and central to us as citizens. Hong Kong is what it is today precisely because of these core values, values of freedom, equality, and more importantly, the rule of law. This is in fact what one country, two systems is all about. The upholding of these core values of Hong Kong, even as its sovereignty is transferred back to China almost 18 years ago. Above all, one country, two systems is about maintaining a balance between, on the one hand, the reunification of Hong Kong with its motherland, and on the other hand, the protection of these core values, which have been key to the success of Hong Kong as a city. And the Basic Law is the codification of this fine and delicate balance. The Basic Law is the embodiment of one country, two systems. It provides for the basis for the protection of our core values, and at the same time, it provides for the basis on which we march forwards towards that better and more perfect realization of our core values, towards full and genuine democracy. That we should do so at our own pace in light of the actual situation in Hong Kong is what's promised under Article 45 of the Basic Law. And it doesn't stop there. Article 25 and 26 of the Basic Law provide for our equal rights as Hong Kong citizens to vote for and to stand for election. Further, Article 39 incorporates the ICCPR, which guarantee a citizen's right and opportunity to take part in the conduct of public affairs and to vote and to be elected at genuine elections, guaranteeing the free expression of the will of the electors. Now, crucially, Article 25 of the ICCPR guarantees that every Hong Kong permanent resident shall have the right to enjoy, to vote at elections, and the right to be elected without unreasonable restrictions and without distinction, including distinction based on political or other opinion. To suggest otherwise, that universal suffrage is simply just any system of election which accords with the country's constitution, is a superficial understanding of the concept. It's a superficial understanding of the concept of rule of law. Unfortunately, Acting President, as events have unfolded in the past year, it is all too apparent that this original intent of one country, two systems, to let Hong Kong be Hong Kong, has suddenly fallen by the wayside. With the publication of the white paper by the State Council, the August 31st decision by the NPCSC, the recent statement by various Beijing officials, it is clear that Beijing insists on putting national sovereignty, national security, and national development, which are bywords for power, safety, and vested interests, ahead of any promises made to the Hong Kong people, ahead of the Basic Law, and ahead of one country, two systems. Some call this political reality. Some even call this progress. But to succumb to this kind of logic is to ignore our primary duty as legislators, which is to safeguard the principles, ideas, and core values that underpin our society as protected by the Basic Law. At these times, we must remain vigilant against any attempt to encroach upon the Basic Law. Indeed, the Basic Law is one of the only touchstones against which any proposals of the Chief Executive selection method should be measured. I agree with that. Any proposal failing to strictly conform to the requirements found in the Basic Law should not be allowed to be passed in this Council, and we have such a proposal. Applying this standard, the current proposal on the selection of the Chief Executive for 2017, as proposed by the administration, is not only a huge disappointment to all of us who are eager for a real step forward in Hong Kong constitutional and democratic development. Worse, it is in fact a violation of the original promise and intent of one country, two systems. Number one, the nomination committee is an exact replica of current election committee, and it does not suffice the need of a broadly representative body for nominating chief executive candidates under Article 45. The existing composition of the election committee cannot be representative when, for instance, the four sectors are divided, distributed, weighed arbitrarily, obviously biased towards a small circle of elites, vested interests under the current system. The two additional obstacles or gates introduced by the August 31st decision effectively ensures that the nomination committee acts as a screening mechanism, screening out any and all candidates deemed unacceptable to Beijing. One is that the candidates must obtain the endorsement of not just 1/8 of all the nomination committee members, but it's always been the case, 1/8, but now more than half of the members. The other is that even upon obtaining the endorsement of more than half the nomination committee, a candidate would still need to ensure that he is among the three with the highest number of endorsements, further ensuring that a general election will be composed of none other than candidates endorsed and approved by Beijing. The imposition of these gates is a clear violation of ICCPR and in turn the Basic Law, which provides that no citizen's right to vote and stand in election shall be discriminated on the basis of his political opinions. These gates saddle universal suffrage with unreasonable restrictions on Hong Kong citizens' right to vote, to stand in genuine elections, elections which are supposed to be a free expression of the will of the voters. They force candidates to prove their patriotism to the nomination committee, or worse, to curry favor of 601 nomination committee members by political horse trading of the worst kind. In short, they are a blatant attempt to retain the power of this small circle of elites to have the ultimate say on the selection of our next chief executive, which brings me to my third point. As the Bar Association has rightly pointed out, the nomination committee's function is limited to nomination only. It is neither its place nor function to determine the result of the chief executive election, to filter the political stance of candidates, and to put a self-standing numerical cap to the number of candidates is to predetermine the result of the chief executive election. This is not only a transgression of the nominations committee's authority, it is also rendering universal suffrage, one man, one vote, nothing more than an illusion. It renders the promise of universal suffrage nothing more than a lie. Viewed in this light, it is not difficult to decide how to vote on this reform proposal. Stripped to its core, the meat of the controversy is actually not as complex as the discourses would suggest. On the contrary, the issue is really quite straightforward. If we vote for this proposal, then we accept an obviously fake democratic system in clear violation of the wording of the Basic Law, all just for the sake of political expediency. By doing so, we are in effect tearing up the Basic Law and foregoing the protection it offers to the core values which makes us who we are. We vote to reject this proposal, we send a strong signal to this administration, to the Central People's Government, and to the world, but more importantly, to ourselves as Hong Kong citizens, that we must get back on the right track of one country, two systems, that we must care first and foremost about one country, two systems, about the Basic Law, and about upholding our core values, that we stand not for political expediency of the worst kind, not for economic benefits, but for the principles that we cherish and the core values that we love. Now, it is said that the August 31st decision still stands regardless of the failure to pass the current proposal. Indeed, the Beijing officials have emphasized time and again that the decision will apply for all future reform proposals. I ask my fellow citizens in Hong Kong not to be discouraged nor dismayed by such statements. Be it as it may, political decisions in the future depends on political demands in the future, depends on our next generation. If in 2016, those of us who vote against the proposal find ourselves booted out of this council because the Hong Kong people has forsaken us, then so be it. At least it would be the democratic judgment of the Hong Kong people. But in 2016, the Hong Kong people stand by us, vote for us in the re-election, then I have no doubt that one day, our long quest for genuine democracy will finally reach its destination because our only backing, our only legitimate backing from the Hong Kong people still exists, which keeps us in political office, which demands us to continue to fight for genuine universal suffrage. So for now, Acting President, my answer on how to vote on this all-important proposal is perfectly clear. By the power vested to me through the Basic Law, I proudly vote in defense of the Basic Law, in defense of one country, two systems. I shall vote against this motion. Thank you, President.